Bombay Presidency, 1842. A sealed map case bearing the Great Trigonometrical Survey stamp. Inside, a single cartographic file. Inside the file, a city. The city is called Aravari. The city does not exist. Archival storage, Bombay Presidency, 1973. A sealed leather-bound map case bearing the Great Trigonometrical Survey stamp. The wax seal had not been broken since 1873. The case was catalogued under the designation GTS 1842K. The Great Trigonometrical Survey was the most ambitious cartographic project of the 19th century. By 1842, its triangulation chains had crossed most of the subcontinent with mathematical precision. Inside the case, a single cartographic file. Inside the file, the standard apparatus of 19th-century surveying, triangulation calculations, observed bearings, baseline notes, signatures, official stamps. And one map. The map showed a city in central India, surrounded by triangulation marks and accurate contour lines. The city's name was written in 3 scripts. Devanagari above. Arabic-Persian below. English in the lower margin. Aravari. By all known records of the survey, no field party ever stood inside that city. By all known records of the British administration, that city paid taxes for 31 years. The seal was intact. The map was correct. The world was not. The cartographer who broke the seal in 1973 was a deputy archivist named M. Joshi, on temporary assignment to the post-independence transfer of colonial-era survey records. His marginal notation, preserved on the inside of the case, reads simply, "File remained complete." The map showed a city positioned at 21.5 degrees north, 78.0 degrees east. The location placed Aravari in central India, in what 19th-century administrators classified as the central provinces. The map carried the standard survey designations. Triangulation point Alpha Bravo, primary chain reference, baseline reduction tables. The accompanying file held the field reports, a population estimate of approximately 4,000, a description of 2 principal market streets, a small temple on the western quarter, and an administrative office bearing the seal of the local civil administration. The reports were signed. The reports were stamped. The reports were filed in standard survey procedure. The reports described a city no member of the survey had ever entered. The seal of the local civil administration was attached to the cover. The wax was authentic. The impression was clean. The administrative apparatus of a city of approximately 4,000 was preserved within the file, and the survey's own field office had not yet noticed the discrepancy. Joshi cross-checked the Aravari record against the Master Gazetteer of the Central Provinces, a document compiled across 12 years of administrative effort. The Gazetteer listed 46 settlements within a 50-mile radius of the indicated coordinates. 41 of those settlements were field-confirmed by survey parties at known dates. The records aligned. The triangulation aligned. The administrative correspondence aligned. 5 settlements appeared in the cartographic record but had not been independently confirmed by ground observation. Of the 5, 4 were small villages noted as inaccessible during monsoon seasons, with later records of resolution. They were not anomalous. They were simply provisional. The 5th was Aravari. Joshi extended the cross-check. He examined the survey's internal records for any indication of a field party assigned to Aravari. There was none. He examined the local correspondence for travelers, missionaries, traders, military officers who might have visited. There was none. He examined the customs records for goods entering or leaving the city. There was none. And then he opened the second folder. The folder that should not have existed. Administrative correspondence from Aravari, 1843 to 1873. The second folder contained correspondence from Aravari spanning 11 years. 1843 to 1856. The first letter was a formal acknowledgement of incorporation under the Central Province's administrative framework. The letter bore a wax seal in the standard form, with the city's name impressed at the lower edge. The seal was logged in the Bombay records. The correspondence continued at intervals consistent with other small administrative centers of the period. Tax remittances arrived twice yearly. The amounts were modest, in line with a town of approximately 4,000. The receipts were filed and countersigned. In 1848, Aravari requested constabulary support. The request was processed. The detachment was dispatched. No return report was ever filed. The records indicate that the matter was not pursued. In 1853, Aravari submitted notarized documentation of a local boundary adjustment. The documentation bore the city seal, the local magistrate's signature, and 3 witnesses. The boundary was adjusted. The adjustment was filed. The 11-year administrative trail does not contain a single anomaly. Every document is in order. Every form is correct. Every seal is authentic. In 1857 a survey party of 7 men, led by Lieutenant Edmund Hartwell of the Trigonometrical Survey, was dispatched to verify the coordinates of Aravari. Hartwell had spent 12 years learning to trust instruments over memory. At Aravari, the instruments held. The world did not. The party carried the standard instruments. They carried letters of introduction sealed by the Bombay Presidency. They carried the gazetteer page noting Aravari at 21.5 degrees north, 78.0 degrees east. They reached the coordinates on the 11th of November. Hartwell's field journal, recovered with the rest of the file, describes what they found. The plain was empty. It was not a ruin. It was not a site of recent abandonment. It was an open expanse of central Indian plateau, with thin grass, scattered stones, and the dust of a region between settlements. There was no temple. There was no market street. There was no administrative office. There was no city. The party walked the area for 3 days. They found no foundations. They found no shards of pottery. They found no evidence that any human structure had ever stood at the indicated coordinates. Hartwell's journal entry on the 3rd day reads, in full, "Nothing here. The world is wrong." On the same week, in Bombay, the city of Aravari sent its biannual tax remittance. The seal was authentic. The methodological position taken by the survey, recorded in an internal memorandum dated 1858, was as follows. The Aravari record was almost certainly a cartographic error compounded by a clerical error in the gazetteer chain. The correspondence file was almost certainly produced by a fraud network operating undetected within the local administrative system, a phenomenon known to occur during the period and well documented in other contexts. The seals, the boundary adjustment, the constabulary detachment, the 11-year tax record, all could be accounted for by a sufficiently elaborate and persistent fraud, given the limited means of verification available to the central administration. This position is reasonable. It is the standard explanation. It does not depend on extraordinary claims. The position has, however, 3 quiet difficulties. The detached constabulary was never recovered. The fraud network, if it existed, never claimed any benefit. The tax remittances continued. They did not stop after the dispatch of Hartwell's expedition. They did not stop after the publication of the official memorandum. They did not stop in 1858. They continued until 1873. They continued for 15 more years. The continued correspondence file is the most uncomfortable component of GTS 1842K. It is the largest folder. The seals continue from 1858 onward at the standard biannual cadence. The handwriting changes across the years, as it would in any small administrative office where successive scribes hold the post. The letterforms drift in the way letterforms drift when a real person writes for a real institution over time. There is no single hand maintaining a forgery across 31 years. There are several hands. Some are careful. Some are hurried. One, in 1866, is shakier than the others, as if written by an older or unwell scribe. The boundary adjustments stop after 1853. There are no further constabulary requests. The tax remittances reduce slightly in 1868, then return to standard the following year. The final document in the file is a brief notification dated the 2nd of October 1873. It records the appointment of a new local administrator. The seal is intact. The signature is in a hand that does not appear in any of the previous files. After this letter, the file stops. The seal does not arrive in the spring of 1874. It does not arrive in the autumn. It does not arrive again. The question is not why the file began. The question is why it stopped. The 1880 census of the Central Provinces does not contain Aravari. The name was removed. The administrative correspondence files for the period after 1873 contain no further reference. The triangulation chain that originally produced the location was eventually resurveyed in 1891, with the same coordinates yielding the same empty plane. The survey did not adjust the original 1842 cartographic record. The map remained. The map was left in the file, accurate as drawn, recording a city the world did not contain. M.R. Joshi closed the case in 1973. His marginal notation reads, "File remained complete." Joshi's note was neat, but the final line pressed harder into the paper, as if the hand that wrote it had paused before returning the file to the shelf. The case was returned to archival storage. It was not destroyed. It was not annotated as void. It was placed back among the other completed files of the Central Provinces Survey. Some files are not closed. They are simply set down. The map was right. The world was not. We do not know which one of them stopped sending its administrators. We do not know whether the city that paid taxes for 31 years was ever there. We do not know what the seals were sealing. Cross-reference. The Great Trigonometrical Survey was the most ambitious geographical survey of the 19th century. It mapped the Indian subcontinent with mathematical precision. File GTS 1842-K is preserved in archival storage. The map shows a city. The administrative records confirm a city. The ground does not. Some files are not closed. They are simply set down. End of file.